Hey guys, welcome back to the Open Minds podcast. I'm your host Viki and I'm here to get you thinking differently. Today I'm joined by my beautiful friend Rani. She is someone that I have known for kind of since I started doing nails. She came to me as a client it was like year 12 formal or something, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
so I think it was 2019 or 2018.
Which doesn't seem like that far away, but when you think about it, that's like 5 years ago.
Mm.
But basically, Rani started off as a client, and now I am very grateful to call her a friend. And Rani is here today to talk to us about something called NLP. And she was also previously in the beauty industry like me, and she's had a little bit of a shift in career. And coming off the back of the last episode where I spoke about that scary feeling when you're finishing year 12 and feeling like it's the end of the world and you don't know what to do and you're doomed if you don't know what you want to do. I thought that this episode would be very fitting towards the end of the year. So I'm going to pass it off to Rani, who's going to tell us a little bit about how she got from year 12 to where she is now.
Hello, everyone, firstly, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm
it's a pleasure.
super excited to be here. My voice is very fitting for this episode. It started to leave, so if my voice sounds deep, that's why. So basically, like Vicky said, I came to her, I would have been 17. I didn't even have my license when I first met you.
How did you get to the appointment?
So there would have been a time where I probably caught a train to come see you. Would have been 2 trains. Or
that's commitment, guys.
Guys, if you want the best nails, you have to leave your hometown. Like, that's just what it is. Or maybe I got dropped off.
Yeah.
Because my parents have a business in Melbourne, so maybe that as well.
Because you were living in
A place called Seymour.
Yeah.
It's like an hour and a half down the Hume Freeway.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know where Seymour is, perhaps you might know where Wallen is. Continue going down the freeway or think about like Shepparton way, but definitely not that far.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah. So basically in year 12 I did non-scored. So I knew that I was never going to go to uni. I never had the vision or the drive of I want to study for the rest of my life, and I didn't really love school as it was. And the only kind of subject that I actually enjoyed was PE, which made sense when I became a personal trainer, which I'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
So in year 12, like Vicky was saying, I felt kind of very lost as a 17-year-old. I had no fucking idea what I wanted to do.
Which a lot of people do. So if you are kind of feeling that way, it's so fine. Like, take it from us. It is so fine.
Yeah. And I'm unsure, obviously, of what the schooling system is now like. However, when I went to school, it was very much, we had a careers teacher and it was like, what subject do you want to go to at uni? And it was drilled into us like uni. And I was like, I'm not going though. Yeah. So like, what is my option? And the only thing that they said was typically like a trade. And I'm like, when I think trade, I'm like, I'm not becoming like a plumber or a chippy or some shit. Like, not for me. And basically, when I talked to the head of VCE, he said that I needed to get a job in the industry that I was interested in. And I was like, well, I don't know. And in my opinion back then, I thought, beauty or hair would be the easy option.
Mm-hmm. Did you have an interest in hair or you just thought it was easy?
No, I just thought it was easy.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
Yeah. So I didn't have an interest really in anything besides sport. I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I developed an interest in it when I was in it.
Like when you were doing your
when I started it. Yeah, so basically once I started working for my old hairdresser. So she had just launched her business and it was super fun because I was like, this is something new. I've never besides that, I'd had hospitality jobs. Yeah. So I've never had a job where I'm like answering the phone and like doing admin and like sweeping the floors.
And I feel like when you first do something like that, it's very, what's the word? Like everything is fun and exciting and glamorous. Like I remember when I first worked as a receptionist, I was like, oh, this is so glamorous. I'm like answering the phone and like sitting at a desk and doing like big people things.
Yeah. So it felt like really interesting. And then I remember when it came to the time where she first taught me to wash someone's hair, and I remember how awkward I felt. And I was like, but how do I touch her head? Like, it was like so awkward, bless her. And then from there, I started to develop more of an interest in it. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is actually like kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
and I started to recognize what my boss had done for her clients. And it was like they would always feel really like they felt amazing. And it was really cool watching them go from like, if they came in feeling not so confident, leaving feeling like, oh my God, like look at my hair, I feel
It's like
incredible.
a different sense of fulfillment that you get
Yes.
from making your clients happy.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to observe. And then once it kind of got to the back end of high school, once I graduated, basically her name's Ellie, my old boss, who's I'm still very, very good friends with, offered me an apprenticeship. And I kind of knew it was coming because we'd briefly spoken about it, and my parents as well were like, she's probably going to offer you an apprenticeship, like you got to take it, these things don't come around often. And I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I was happy just like doing that casually, and I was like, oh, I'm like not really sure like what I want to do. However, it came around and I was like, right, well, I'm about to be 18. I guess it's time for me to be an adult and get a full-time job like everyone else seems to be doing. No one in my year was like that, but I was like, well, I guess this is the next thing, right? Like what else are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
And I started my apprenticeship. I'd freshly turned 18. I'd just moved to Melbourne for my apprenticeship as well. And then it wasn't too long after that COVID kind of began.
Yeah.
So a lot of my apprenticeship was in person, but then once COVID happened, a lot of it was online. So
and you had to do trade school during
Yeah.
that time as well.
yeah, so there was a time where you couldn't even go into trade school. So I did a lot of the learning online, like all the, I guess, theory online, and the practicals you could send video submissions or do it by Zoom.
Which is just not the same, is it?
It's not. And having someone trying to teach you via Zoom in a classroom of like however many people in a Zoom call is like really challenging. I was very fortunate enough that my boss had taught me quite a bit even prior going to trade school. So I kind of had an understanding of like where I was at with hairdressing, and I guess I even had an idea of what foiling was and how to colour someone's hair before actually stepping into it in trade school. So I kind of had more of an idea than maybe some of the other students did. And basically I got into my second year, and
Had COVID kind of settled down by then?
it was still kind of like up and down.
Yeah.
So while I was at trade school, some weeks we were allowed to go, some weeks we weren't, and you had to like confirm if you were going. So you'd only have a certain amount of kids in the room with you, because it was like,
the restrictions
Yeah.
on like how many people in a room. Yeah.
yeah, well, I actually forget some of this
I
shit.
know. I was like, remember when they were like, oh, restaurants can only have like this many people in this space?
Remember when we had a curfew?
Yeah.
And then it was like a suburb curfew?
Yeah, yeah. And you couldn't
How
like
cooked.
leave that.
No.
I remember I actually got pulled over once by cops, and they were checking your ID to see if you were like from the area. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening?
I feel like the world was like shitting itself. Like, what the fuck
Yeah.
was that time? Anyways, and basically while I was doing my apprenticeship, I still felt like lost.
Yeah.
I still was like, I'm doing this thing and it's cool, but like surely there's something else. Like I just felt super unfulfilled.
Were you enjoying it though?
I liked the idea of new things.
Okay.
However, once it kind of got, I mean, everything to some extent becomes repetition,
Yeah.
right? Like for you, nails, but like I'm sure that there's different designs.
Yeah.
And there
yeah,
might be it's
exactly.
more common things than
It's like
not.
every day's different, but every day's the same at the
Yeah,
same time.
yeah. So for me, I know that I really like to try a lot of different things. I just think it's fun.
Yeah.
So I feel like I got to a point where I'm like, okay. And this was like when the salon was able to open back up more. And I was seeing more and more clients. And this is the first time where I probably had days that were like booked out. And prior to that, during COVID, I didn't obviously have that. And having clients back to back, it was just like go, go, go. And I was like, oh my God. And I had this light bulb moment, and I was like, how the fuck do these girls do this? Like 5 days a week. Like my back was, I was freaking 19 and my back was hurting, my neck was sore, my feet were sore. And I was like, how?
And hairdressing is such long hours as
Yeah.
well.
They're quite long, especially like a Thursday night. Like typically the salon will have at least one long day. And that was, I think it was from like 12 to 9.
Yeah.
So and it's quite long hours.
And you're on your feet like all day.
Pretty much the entire time. And I would love when I get the opportunity to sit out the front, like and do reception, because I'm like, oh my God, I get to sit down. But it was full on, and I don't think I'd registered because I hadn't had that experience of being booked yet. And I guess once I had it, I was like, wow, like this is full on. Like, I don't know if I can, like, do this forever. Like, it was hard.
I think some people think like, oh, beauty's easy. You just like sit there and
The
like,
thought,
you know,
the
do
thought
what you
that
do.
I had at 17 lies. It's not easy. It's fucking hard.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a lot that goes into, like, colouring someone's hair. It's not as simple as, like, going to the supermarket and just putting something on your head.
I think there's a lot of thinking involved as well.
Yep.
Like, there's so many factors to weigh up when you're colouring someone's hair, which I've learned now that I've bleach burned my own hair. But it's like I think that comes with experience as well. And so for someone that's new, it's all very like difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, I just couldn't believe how much went into like colouring someone's hair. Like when I used to just get my hair done, I'm like, oh yeah, like it looks so easy. And then when you're like, they just paint the hair, like it's great. And then when it was I was the practitioner, like on the end, it was like, wow, it is not like that. And it doesn't take much to actually fuck it up.
Yeah.
Like, especially if someone has colour in their hair and they haven't told you about it, like how can you fix that? Or if they end up having like
banding.
Band, like bleach band, you can easily fuck that up if there's like something left in their hair and or if you haven't folded it right or you've like drowned too much bleach towards the top of the foil and it can get pushed out. Like there is actually so much that goes into it. I'm surprised that I still remember all this. So yeah, it's not just as simple as like, here you go, this, that, the other. It's actually quite challenging. And around the same time, I started struggling with my body image, which we're going to dive more into next episode. However, I decided that I needed to do something about that. So I started went to a group fitness place first. So I went to Body Fit. I hadn't heard good things about F45, so I steered away from that place. Ended up working there anyway. But I went to Body Fit and I remember thinking like the whole stigma of like you need to do cardio to lose weight.
Yeah.
So I started the cardio classes and I was like, I actually fucking hate these. Like the burpees, the ski ergs, all this shit. Like, oh my God, how are these people like...
I feel like I like cardio because I like the feeling that it gives you after, but I don't like the feeling of wanting to vomit and die leading up to that feeling.
Yeah, like, and it's full on, especially in a group class. Like, they're on you. And then when you're with a partner, I feel like you kind of push each other and it's good. However, like, it was something that I was almost doing every day. And it was like,
that's so intense.
No. So then I started to find like the weight classes and I loved it. Because I realised that, I'm actually, like, kind of
really
strong.
Good at it.
I'm actually, like, pretty good. And then from there, I ended up getting my own personal trainer. And I just remember chatting to her. And I'm actually working with her now. She's one of my clients now, which is really...
Oh, my God, that's
so it's, like, a full circle moment. It's really awesome. And I remember chatting to her about, like what she does and, like, how did you get... Like, what do you need to do this as a job? And I remember us talking about the certificates and all the things, and she had a Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness. And I just remember looking at her job being like, what a fucking cool job. Like, I've always loved exercise. So I've been an active kid since as long as I can remember. So I used to ride horses, I used to do athletics, I used to run, I used to swim, and then I used to play netball. Like, it got to a point in high school, like in year 12, where I was playing 5 times a week. Like that, it was full on. So I was quite good at it at my peak.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing anything else besides that. And basically once I started hairdressing, because Saturdays were out of the equation, I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Which is kind of how I fell into the group fitness and then the PT. And I just remember asking her, like, so, like, you get to sit around and talk to people while they exercise and, like, show them how to do things.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is, like, seems like a fucking cool job. Like, I wonder if I could do that.
Now, you say that you've always kind of liked exercise and sports and stuff. Was there a moment in year 12 when you were finishing up that you thought of doing something in fitness?
So, yes. However, every time it was spoken about in our classroom, it was always like uni. Like a teacher or like...
Exercise
or like
physiology or something.
Yeah, and like I'll become like a sports player's coach or something, and it's like you needed to go to uni for that. So all I've literally attached 2 and 2 and gone, oh, well, for me
I don't want to go uni.
Yeah, I don't want to go to
wanna
uni.
do
So then how am I supposed to do fitness?
Yeah.
And we were never told about the fact that there's like a certificate. Or if we were, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
So...
And I think when you're in that like 17 teenage kind of mindset, whatever you hear is like facts. You don't think of doing more research like the way that we do now that we're a bit older. I feel like you just, someone that's maybe older or more successful or more mature tells you something and you just like Okay, cool.
Yeah, well, if I look at this from like an NLP perspective, from 0 to 7, you have imprint, like it's called imprinting, which is where you basically you kind of don't really know anyone else is around you, and you just like, for example, like you kind of just know your parents are there, and maybe you have one or two friends, and anything in this stage can really affect you. Like, for example, if you see like your parents getting really angry and they just suppress it and shut down, you imprint that on yourself and go, you see it and you're like, okay, cool, that's so they don't deal with it, they just shut down. And then you can take that on into your adulthood. And then from 7 to 14 is where you model. So what you're saying, so especially teachers, anyone who you look up to tells you one thing, you're fucking probably going to believe it. Because that's the age where you're modeling everyone around you and you're looking for like people to look up to. And then from 14 to 21 is socialization. So you're trying to figure out where you fit in.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense, which is what you're saying. Like you can't make sense of, well, what do they know? Like, do they know, is this exactly the truth or is there more out there? But you can't really make sense of that.
Yeah.
Like, kind of at those ages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had thought about it. I thought coaching, I liked the idea of being a sports coach. However, all I heard was uni and I was like, well, I'm not going. So like, it's not happening then. And basically while I was still doing my apprenticeship, I was still at trade school. I went and saw a psychic. Now, I don't know.
I remember this.
I don't know how woo-woo your listeners are. I'm not going to go too woo.
Yeah.
And I had thought about doing my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. Again, I just wanted the extra push. I was at a stage in my life where I couldn't just listen to myself. I needed someone else's.
You needed the support and maybe like
the reassurance.
a sign, and a bit of validation.
Yeah. So I went to this chick. I found her name's Julie. It's called, her Instagram's The Modern Day Medium. She's very good. I've seen her twice. She's been fucking spot on twice. And basically when I first went, I was very skeptical about a psychic because I'd heard, like, when I think of psychics, I think about the movies and I'm like, oh,
Scam.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I don't know. And I'd seen one like at a market. Obviously at the market, they're not going to be very good.
Yeah.
However, I was skeptical and I was very cautious as well because like my whole life is on social media. So I was like, well,
it's not hard for someone
no,
to
I was like,
you
will she know? So I was like, you know, I'm going to go in with like zero expectations and just be open, see what she says. And basically I get in there, first thing she says, she goes, do you need to go to the toilet? I did. I needed to pee. And I was like, she's read my mind. She knew. just common manners. Anyway, and I remember sitting down and she explained how it was going to work. So basically everyone, and you can choose to do what you want with what I'm about to say, has like guardians or something that looks up above you, or it can be like past generations. It could be like spirit guides. It could be guardian angels or like someone that's passed down that's like watching out for you. So it literally could be a family member. And she's like, your guides are here with me. They're going to talk to me. And I had no idea what a guide was back then.
You were just like, what is
I was
this?
like, huh? She's like, they're going to talk to me and then I'm going to tell you what they're trying to tell, like let you know. And I was like, okay. I was like, okay, this is like woo. And she's like writing down what they're saying. She's like, okay. And I was like, what is happening? Like I've never been in a room with someone like that before. And basically she told me all these things that there's no fucking way she could have known. Like she's like, you don't enjoy your job. I hadn't even admitted that to myself yet. And I was like,
how does she
know that? And I'm like, well, she didn't put that on my social media, so it's not from there. And she said to me that you're going to go into the health and fitness industry. Like, why are they saying that? Is there something that you've thought about? And again, I hadn't told anyone this besides my mum. And I was like, yeah, like I've been thinking about doing a PT course, but I'm just like unsure about it. She's like, I think you should do it. And I was like, oh, okay. And she told me some things about my great-grandmother. There's no way she could have known.
Yeah.
She also told me, again, in the next episode, she told me about my eating disorder. She's like, an eating disorder keeps coming up. Is there a reason that they're trying to tell me that? Do you have one? Do you think you have one? And there was no, and I just started having thoughts of like, something's actually wrong with my eating. And I was like, how the fuck does she know this?
Yeah. Like it's not stuff that she could have Googled or like found out.
No. Yeah. And she told me some other stuff about like partners and like where I'd end up moving. And that sort of stuff. And that really just was like, whoa. So basically I started, after that, I was like, fuck, all right, great, cool. I need to like sign up for my cert, have a call. So I had a couple of chats to a few different companies and I found one and basically I signed up and it was like online. And then actually the whole thing was online. I wanted to do it in person, but with my job, because I was working full time, it was never going to work. Yeah. So it was a lot of like theory and then it was a lot of like recording and talking. They would have to see you coach someone. They'd have to
Mhm.
see you perform exercises. So it really wasn't bad. However, if I was to go back or if anyone asked me now, I'm like, do the in-person thing.
Yeah.
Because I think that doing a hands-on approach, especially as a PT, and that's a hands-on job, I feel
I
like,
think anything hands-on, you need to do hands-on. Like,
yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of online training now for beauty courses. I'm like, how are you going to learn how to do nails online? Like, yeah, you can see how they do it, but it teaches you nothing about like angles, pressure. Like, when you're doing something online, you don't have someone to tell you, oh, you're doing this wrong. And you would know from PT,
Yep.
like, someone thinks that they're doing a deadlift right, and then you correct them, and you're like, oh, I get it now. But if you don't have anyone there to correct you, you don't know when you're doing something wrong.
It's even different from when you perform it versus when your clients perform it and you need to correct it. And that was honestly something that I just learned as I went. So to bring it back, basically I was doing the apprenticeship and started my Cert 3. I literally remember being at trade school, like, because I was waiting to do my prac because I'd done all the freaking theory. And I literally remember being in the training room doing my Cert 3. And I remember like answering test questions and whatever. When they would come around, I like change my screen back to like hairdressing.
Yeah.
And I think that was a massive indication for me being like, fuck,
This isn't what I want to do.
it's actually maybe not for me anymore. And I'm really bad at, I actually think it's a really great tool that I have, but back then I didn't think it was great. I'm shocking at like lying. And if I don't enjoy something, my face will say it. So I remember my boss pulling me aside and she's like, I know what you want to do. Because I was starting to be miserable hairdressing. And it wasn't the girls. I love all the girls and I love the salon. It was like, I just wasn't enjoying the job anymore. And every time I talked to my clients about like what I was doing, because I ended up dropping down to like part-time and then I eventually dropped lower. And when I talked to like my clients about it, Ali would overhear and Ali was fine about it. However, she's like, I hear the way you talk about fitness. And she's like, and I hear the way you talk about hairdressing. And she's like, I know what you want to do. I need you to say it so then we can like action it and like make
I love
changes.
how supportive she was.
Ali honestly was the biggest reason as to why I shifted careers. And I was like really struggling with people pleasing back then as well. Like I was like, but she spent money on me. Like she's taken time to train me. I can't leave her.
Did you ever feel like you had spent money and time doing like
No.
You never felt like
I never even was like, whatever. It was more about like the fact that she'd spent money on me and I felt guilty because
like
I was.
you owed her something.
Yeah, and it was this massive, massive, just people pleasing tendencies. And I had a fear, obviously, of Ali not liking me or her disregarding me forever because I like didn't want to hairdress anymore. And she was amazing enough that I just became a salon assistant, which was like part-time. And then eventually it just became casual, but it was like kind of part-time hours. And that was great because it gave me more time to juggle like the hairdressing and the like studying my PT. And while that was happening, I got offered a job out in Mill Park at this boutique personal training studio. So I'd just done my Cert 3. So technically I was only qualified for group fitness. However, if you're coaching under someone, I think you just need your Cert 3 if it's okay with the person whose business it is. And so that's when I started one-on-one PTing out of her studio. So I was just paid an hourly rate. And I got a real feel for like what it would be like coaching one-on-one. And I knew that I always wanted to have my own business. That was my end goal. And I was there for a little while and then I got a group fitness job when my hours at Ali's dropped down again because I still needed money, obviously, to survive. And I started working at an F45. I'm not going to name and shame what one it was. However, I started working at an F45 and again, I actually thought it was really fun because I haven't really done like a big group environment like that where there is 2 instructors for like, it's like up to 30 members, like 30 people.
It's like a lot of people.
It's a lot of people in a room. And when I first started, again, I thought it was the coolest job in the world because I was like, wow, I could actually work out with them, be like push them and I would do the burpees with them and then I would move on and like correct them. And in the group fitness, some people are like super independent. Like they don't really need you to correct them. So sometimes it's more of a motivational thing. So like sometimes you jump in, sometimes you cheer them on or whatever. And eventually I was working there like say in the morning, then I would go hairdress and then I might go at the night time to this Mill Park studio. So it was fucked. Like I was working so much. But I didn't really like think too much about it because I was like, well, I'm not doing anything else. And I didn't have a dog either at this point. So I was like, well, it doesn't matter. Like I'll just go do whatever. And the F45 at 19 offered me a management position.
Mm-hmm.
And their manager at that one studio was leaving to go to another studio.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, oh, we would love to have you. And I fucking knew they were going to offer it to me because I know I've got a good work ethic. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it was something that I really didn't want to pass up because I was like, but what if I did try that thing? And what if it was great? What if I loved it? And I was like, oh, it'll give me some tools as well when I start my own business as to, I guess, how I want to run it.
It's like an experience and opportunity, right?
Yeah, a massive experience. And it wasn't something that I wanted to pass up. And basically, if I took it, though, I needed to leave the salon and I needed to leave the other gym.
Mm-hmm.
So I like sacrificed a decent amount for this company, for these people. And basically, they gave me the keys to their gym and said, here you go. Like, gave me like a week training with one of the other managers. And basically gave me the keys and go, here you go, it's your gym now. Like, only communicate with us, like, if something's like going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And at 19, I have no fucking idea how to run a business. Like, are you joking? Like, what? Like, I have no idea. And I just remember sitting on like sales calls with their company that they'll use for marketing. And it was so salesy, dude. Like, basically telling me to like promise them that they can achieve their goals if they come to this group fitness class where we don't even offer nutrition. And the company offers nutritional advice, but it is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, actually terrible. And there's no education around any of it. So eventually it started to not really sit right with my morals.
Yeah.
And my mental health started to decline because, like, it was just fucked. And my staff weren't the most reliable. And I got to a point where I wouldn't even want to drive back home to see my parents who live an hour and a half away because I was worried that my staff would cancel. And if if my staff cancel, it lies on me. No one else can do anything about it. And I was, again, people pleasing because I was like, well, I don't want to bother the owners on their weekend when it's my problem. And I didn't get paid more for doing overtime or anything.
Yeah.
And again, at 19, I was naive. I didn't know that, like, I was doing, like, quite a lot.
More than what you needed to.
Yeah. And then eventually I left that. And I remember having a meeting in their house with them. I wonder if they're going to listen to this. Who knows? Probably not. And I remember it was a couple and I remember him asking me, so, like, well, what do you want to do? Because I was open and I was like, my eating disorder is very flared. My mental health is really bad. I need to drop down to casual. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I honestly only lasted like maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
And like my mental health was, I wasn't even training anymore. It got to a point where I remember like showing the members how to do like certain exercises. And I literally remember getting puffed. And I was like,
how did I get here?
yeah. And it was like this wake up call. I was like, how the fuck did I get here? And I remember saying, well, I want to have my own business. So when my Cert 4 comes in, like I'm leaving, I'll leave, I'll give you notice and I'll go start my own business. And he tried to tell me that he would pay me more than like what I could ever earn on my own, that I would never earn enough on my own. What a load of shit. I
think they were taking advantage of your age and your naiveness. But good on you for not listening.
So basically I pieced out of that shit. I left. The second my Cert 4 came in, I left and just got straight into PT at a gym in my area. And it's a big box gym. So that was really, and when I say big box, like it's not small. Like, and when you think about like Good Lives, like Snaps or Crunches, typically they have like some sort of lead gen where they can give you like, you know, this person signed up for a free PT, here you go. And then you can try and convert them yourself. The gym that I work at is not like that at all. They don't really help you out with anything. So I think it was a massive, I guess, it was just a massive lesson, like showing me how big companies work. And it really, I just like threw myself into the deep end. And either I sank or I swam. And I swam. And then, yeah,
I remember having this conversation with you and you're like, where do I start? Like,
yeah.
What are taxes?
Oh,
like,
Viki and
how do I manage my money? Like,
Viki and I went out for breakfast one time. She's like, if you ever need anything like business-wise, like let's just go out for breakfast. And we went, and fuck me. I remember like, I was like, I didn't even know what questions to ask you.
I remember you were telling me your prices and you were telling me like how much it was costing you. And I was like, how are you surviving right now?
And Viki started talking about taxes and I was like, what?
I was basically like, this is not your money, yeah. But we got through it.
We did. I think that whole conversation was fucking overwhelming. Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's what business is.
I could feel the fear in your
I
eyes.
was
You were
like,
just like,
why
what
am I
have
here?
I done?
Whose idea was it to run a business? Like, honestly, sometimes I do think that. Sometimes
Yeah.
I have the thought every now and then I remind myself as to why I do it. So that was kind of like, I guess I PT'd. I started doing that, started running my own business in like May, June last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been PTing up until now. And what I've noticed with my clients, and like, so I predominantly work with women. However, the industry that I'm in now, I actually really want to work with men too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in just working with anyone. And basically, majority of my PTs were women. They were pretty much women the entire time. And what I would notice is when they would come for fat loss is that I'm like, so, okay, like you want to lose weight, like why is that?
Mm-hmm.
And it was always a surface level responsive. I just want to feel a bit more comfortable in my clothes, and maybe I want to feel a bit more like comfortable or confident. And at the start, I like didn't really see through that bullshit excuse. And it's not, I mean, it's not bullshit. However, I think that there's more to
Yeah.
it. I truly believe that there's more to it than that. And I was like, yep, cool. And, you know, I would help them get their results. And then I honestly would feel a bit fulfilled at the start. However, eventually it was the same shit that I was doing. And I was like, fuck, I don't even feel fulfilled helping these girls get the results that I want. And I was like, what is wrong with me? And then they would be happy for 2 seconds, but then they also wouldn't be fulfilled and they would go back into a cycle. And I'm like seeing this and I'm like, well, it's the same shit. So how do I help them with that? And it was like, I, at the start, tried to help them with my backstory, with my eating disorder. I'm like, this is what worked for me, this is what didn't, and tried to help them on that level. However, I didn't have the knowledge around like
How
can I support them like mentally, because this is what it is. It's not just like I'm just going to train to lose weight. Like there's a reason behind it. I couldn't make sense of like how was I supposed to do that. And I was at a fitness convention. And I remember I was super anxious. It was the very first convention I'd ever been to as a business owner. And I remember walking into the room and I had bad imposter syndrome at the start. Like, did you ever have imposter syndrome?
I still have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so it was really scary for me to walk into this room as a new coach. And I knew all of these people in this room were like very well known.
And I think we're in industries that are very judgy.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I walked in. And it was very cliquey. The first thing that I saw was everyone was in like little groups. And I was like, fuck me. I'm looking around for anyone that I know. And I even messaged people the night before to see if they were going. And no one I knew was going. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And I didn't have the confidence to just approach someone and be like, hey, how you going? Like now, that's no worries. Yeah. But back then I didn't have that. And I remember seeing this blonde girl like on her phone and something about her. I was like, oh. I felt really
She's
drawn
alone, I'm alone.
I was
let's
like,
be
you know,
friends.
let's be friends. And I felt really drawn to her. So I went up to her and started talking to her. And I was like, oh, I'm Rani. Like, what's your name? She's like, oh, I'm Elise. And she was like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a PT. Like, what do you do? And she's like, oh, I was a PT. I bought these tickets prior to COVID and now I'm in the mindset space. And I'm like, oh, like mindset, like, what's that? And she's like, oh, so like, what do you do? And she's like, I help people like work through their roadblocks and like get them to become better. I'm sure she used probably better words than that, but that's basically the story behind it. And I remember following her, and then basically we had to go into the room. We got split up, and I was like, okay, like cool. And I was so anxious. I ended up finding people that I knew and people that knew me, that knew of me. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, okay, thank God. And they were really lovely. However, I was still super fucking anxious. Yeah. And I ended up leaving that day, and I did not go back the second day because I was so anxious. Yeah. And I remember messaging her literally because I wanted an excuse. And I was like, I just feel really sick. Yeah. I was just so anxious I couldn't go back to this convention. And I followed her for like 6 months. And I remember seeing all of her stuff, her talking about mindset, or she'd be like, have you ever felt this way? I'm like, this girl is fucking reading my mind. Like, how does she know that this is the stuff that I'm struggling with? Like, I haven't even told anyone about this sort of stuff. And
you don't even know yourself.
I don't even know, but I'm like, she knows. And I'm like, what is going on? And I saw her host this event in the Gold Coast. So she's from Melbourne. She moved to the Gold Coast and she ran this event in Gold Coast. And I was like, oh, that seems really cool. Wonder if she'll run one in Melbourne. A few weeks later, she's like, I'm going to run one in Melbourne. Because for my hometown people, I'm going to run one there. I'm like, oh, I fucking got to go.
This is it.
This is it.
The sign, yeah.
So I went, loved everything she was about. I already knew that I liked her. And basically, if you shared a story that you were at her event, you would go into a giveaway to win a free coaching call with her. I didn't even know really what a coaching call was. Like, I was like, I don't really know what I'd talk about. Anyway, I posted it because I thought, why not? I won the giveaway. Of course I did. Thank you. I won, and we sat down and had a coaching call about like what she does.
Yeah.
And I remember her asking me like, what do I do for fun? I started crying. I literally did not have an answer. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I go for a walk. Is that fun? And she's like, I don't know. Is it? And I was like, kinda. Like, I guess.
I don't know. Trick question.
Yeah. And I remember I basically signed on coaching with her. Essentially, that's kind of how I started to learn about mindset, because it was creating shifts within myself.
Yeah.
And it made me recognize that there's a lot of things I didn't actually want to do when I was doing it for a validation.
Yeah.
For a validation point. And especially when it came to like fat loss, like why was I actually doing that? For what purpose was I doing that? And it was never about actually wanting to feel good about myself. It was, but it didn't make me feel good even when I looked that way. And I remember one day asking her like what she actually does, and she told me it's a thing called NLP. So it stands for neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro meaning your brain, linguistic is the language that you use, and then your programming is like how it all works. So your belief systems, your values, your like the whole like if you've had any traumatic events, how that sticks with you, all of that sort of stuff. And you've got like memories and everything in that as well. And I was like, wow, that's like really cool. And I was like, oh yeah, like maybe I'll be interested in that. And she goes, we'll talk about it when you feel ready. And I hadn't felt ready yet. And I remember doing some Googling, because she's like, I'll tell you when you're ready. And I was like, I'm not ready yet, but like I just want to look.
Yeah.
So I remember Googling it, and I found some companies in Melbourne, but it looked boring. And I was like, nah. And I'm very visual, so it has to look good and it has to feel good in my body. Like if I look at it and I'm like, yep, then it's a fuck yes, and I'll just do it straight away.
Yeah.
Like I won't do that much. I'll do a bit of research, but like I'll just go for it.
Yeah.
And then I saw this chick, her name's Elizabeth Ann Walker, and it was in Gold Coast. And I remember watching her like opening video, and I fucking got goosebumps. And I was like, whoa, like this thing like looks so intense. And I remember I saw my coach in one of the videos. I was like, okay, this must be where she did it. But I was like, is that her or is it not her? I'm pretty sure it is, but like I'll ask her later on. And then I looked at the price, and it was obviously a couple of $1,000. And at the time I was like, oh, nah. And it's in Gold Coast. Like what?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to make a whole holiday out of it. Like I don't have the money to do that. Making excuses for myself. And then I went to this event in Gold Coast earlier this year, and I was sat next to this girl, and I was chatting to her. I was like, what do you do? And this was business and personal development event. And I said, what do you do? And she's like, oh, like I'm like a mindset coach. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And we just started chatting about it. I said, that's kind of what I want to move into. And I want to blend it in with fitness, because fitness is great. However, like without the mindset stuff, I just feel like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or doesn't work as well. And she's like, I said, oh, like what did you do for that? She goes, oh, I've got this qualification. And this guy came on and started talking, so we stopped talking. And a few days go by, and she goes, oh, I've got to tell you, this is where I do it. And she sent me through an Instagram DM a video of this company. And I'm like, fuck, this looks familiar.
It was the same one.
Yeah, I click on the Instagram, and I click on the web link. It was the exact same chick. So it was Liz again. And then I asked my coach, I said, hey, I've seen this. So it's called EAWTC, so Elizabeth Ann Walker Training Centre. And I remember being like, hey, have you heard of this? She goes, that's where I did my training.
And then you were like, okay.
And then I was like, okay, done.
Yeah.
Like, that's my sign. I've seen it 3 fucking times. I got to do it. So I went in October. So I already kind of knew what it was going to be like, considering my coach had done these practices on me. So I had a bit of idea as to what it would be like. However, and we had pre-recording stuff that we needed to do. So again, you have an idea. However, like the second you get in that training room, like it's like very full on in the best way possible. And basically it was a week-long thing for like 14, 15-hour days. Like some of them were really long. And basically we got to practice all the techniques. We got taught all the techniques and then practiced on each other. So essentially when we came out of the training room, we had essentially like coached 20 people. So it was really awesome. And basically the second I came out of that training room, even in the training room, I already started advertising for essentially, like you want to think about NLP as like mindset coaching and or life coaching. They kind of go hand in hand. And you don't need to be like sad or like depressed to want to do this stuff. Like I'm not sad or depressed and I do this stuff.
Yeah.
It just helps you get from where you are now to the next level, and it helps you close that gap and get there faster. And for me and the clients that I work with, typically my clients on some level are like me. And that's why I love them, and that's why like they're probably my dream client, because they are me, and I can help them move through stuff because I've been there and done it.
Yeah.
So essentially the work, like it dives right into like your belief systems. It dives right into your childhood. Like I said earlier, because of the ages from 0 to 7 and then 7 to 14 and even 14 to 21, they're very important years of your life, and especially the younger years. you'd be surprised how early on you can feel a negative emotion. And if you don't release that efficiently, it can stay stuck in your body. And like from a energetics perspective and like it's something called quantum healing, essentially you can have certain parts of your body that can have injuries or like tightness or things like that that can be caused by negative emotions if you have not released it. So I'm not super fluent in like the quantum healing realm. However, I do know things like if you have like rashes or something like that, any like eczema or anything red that comes up can typically be done from like repressed anger or like frustration. I actually currently have rashes on my body.
What are you angry about,
I think that I'm just trying to purge.
Yeah.
It's trying to come out. And then I'm pretty sure like lower back as well can be repressed anger. And then if you look at like your left and your right side of your body, you've got your feminine, which is your left side, and then you've got your masculine, which is your right side. So example as well, if you have like sore knees, if you're like the question that you get asked is where are you unwilling to take a step forward? It's like they're very like big questions. However, like it makes so much sense. Example, I had two clients actually the other week that had sore throats. And when you look at the throat, it's like the throat chakra, which is like your personal truth, how you communicate, you say what you want to say. And basically they had sore throats. And I asked them a question, what are you not saying that you want to say? And they said, oh, like nothing. I said, think about it. Is there something that you want to say to someone or to yourself that you haven't said? And they said, oh, like, fuck, there is actually. And I said, okay, great. Right, I want you to write it down and then I want you to burn it. And say exactly what you want to say and then I want you to burn it so then it's out of your awareness. You don't need to think about it anymore. And shit, you know, the next day their sore throat was gone. Yeah. And then what's great is some of my clients are mirrors for me. And then I started to develop a sore throat too. So my question to myself was, where are you like not saying what you want to say? And that's then write it out and burn it. Like even if you're angry or sad about something, if you don't actually want to talk to the person about it. So for example, things that I've had to do have been past situations or past partners and I don't want to have the conversation with them and you don't have to. You can literally write out exactly what you want to say and like address it to them. Like this is what you would say to them and then just burn it so it's gone. Because there's a part of your brain called your reticular activating system and it's like at the back of your head and basically it goes out and finds evidence of exactly what you tell it. So if I am constantly thinking like, fuck you, like I really want to say this thing, but I don't say it, so I internalize it, then you're bringing it right into your awareness and that's all you're focusing on. So in my head, when you keep letters like that, why would you want to go back and read something to remind you of how you felt in that moment and bring it back into your awareness? Would you not just want to deal with it and then light it and get rid of it?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's the same as well, like when people think that the world's evil and the world's bad and like, you know, it's a bad place or whatever. Like people are evil. I don't believe that anyone is good or bad. I think that everyone just is. And I truly believe everyone does the best that they can with the resources they have. I don't agree with everything that people do.
Yeah.
However, that's not for me to judge. You know what I mean? And so when people look at like, for example, if they've had one toxic relationship with a man, if we're looking at it from a female's perspective or even a male's perspective, and they go, oh, all men are shit, it's a massive generalization. And when you bring in information from an external event, there's filters that actually goes through in our brain and you have generalization, which is what I just said. You have a distortion and then you have a deletion. So a distortion could be like, Vicky, you don't like me. How the fuck do I know you don't like me? Like I've just literally just made that up.
Yeah.
And then you have a deletion where I could just be like, I got fired. And there's no actual information around that event. So basically what can happen is that after you've experienced one thing, you have a massive generalization. So you've got this massive filter on the world and I'm going, oh, all men are shit, right? And if that's all I'm focusing on, my reticular activating system is going to go out and find evidence of that. Therefore, who do you think I'm going to attract? Shit men. Men who are not nice. And it's reaffirming that my narrative of all men are shit. So like when you switch up your awareness and actually start to focus on things that are more positive and just change your language around things, you'd be surprised as to how different the world looks. So yeah, that's now the work that I do. Sorry, I went on a tangent. That's now the work that I do alongside fitness. I'm leaving my PT job literally in 2 days.
Because you're going to the Gold Coast.
Yeah, so I'm moving to Gold Coast towards the end of this year or probably early January. I'm going to leave it up to the universe to decide that one. There's no
I
point.
feel like you've gone on such a full circle moment and even just like a completely different path to what you set out on. what would you say is your best advice for someone that's, finishing year 12, a bit lost, like not sure what to do?
I'm going to say when you ask the question of like, what do I want to do? Trust the first answer that comes to your head. Don't go, but this, but that. What will my parents think? Shush. Don't think about it. Just ask yourself, what is the highest intention of me doing personal training? Or even ask yourself, like, if there's a job that you're considering taking, ask yourself, is this job right for me? Yes, no. And trust the first answer that comes to your head, because that's going to be your subconscious trying to talk to you. Trust it.
And I feel like even if it doesn't work out, it's going to lead you somewhere else, and then you're going to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, and I really believe in that, like, everything happens for a reason, and I believe that our future's already done. And when I say that, I mean, like, I think that everything in my life has already been done. I think it's already set out for me, and now I just think I'm learning lessons along the way. So even like Vicky said, if it doesn't work out for you, then there's probably a lesson in that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on the pod today. It was so nice to have you.
Anytime.
We are going to wrap it up here, guys. And if you want to get in touch with Rani for her coaching, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I would go via Instagram. So it's the.Rani Curry. So RaniCurry. And then you can DM me, or there's a link in my bio that you can book a call in with me and just have a chat.
I hope you guys
Thank you.